So, welcome everyone to exploring parts of Patagonia and Chile, a vast area. I thought we could start with just a little intro to who we are. Some of you I know, and some of you I may not know. But yeah, so I've worked with Elevate for over 10 years. I plan trips, I design trips, I get to research trips and come up with different itineraries and design them. And so I thought it would be nice to kind of do various webinars to help people learn about the destinations where we go. So today we have Rafa, who's an expert in Chile, lives there, lives it, breathes it, as a wealth of knowledge and is very passionate about the region and has a ton of experience and in just many different facets of tourism. And we partner with Rafa because he shares a lot of the same values that Elevate shares. So we have all of that in common, the ethos of just sustainability, travel that gives back, incorporating local communities, benefiting local communities so that tourism actually works for the areas where we operate, and brings in this great wealth of knowledge around conservation, wildlife, all of these different things, birds, you name it. So he lives in the Lake District of Chile, which is kind of the northern um, gateway to Patagonia. And so I'll let him introduce himself briefly as well.
Thank you, Lana. Thank you, Emily. Good afternoon to everybody. Well, afternoon here, at least in Chile. I am in North Patagonia, in the town of Puerto Varas. I'm very happy to be here with you guys, and we hope that we're going to get a great webinar together. Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us. And then we have Emily here. You want to introduce
Hello.
yourself?
So I work with Lana at Elevate, and I am in charge of operations for private travels. So basically, what that means is once you've worked out what you want your travel program to look like, then Lana and I collaborate to make sure that everything that you've talked about and decided to include happens as we've said that it will. So all the logistics on the ground, basically.
Yeah, and we had the pleasure of traveling to Chile together in October with Rafa as well, and got to go on some great adventures together. And so that's really great for us as a team as well, because I've designed these trips with you in mind, and then Emily has all the logistical kind of you know um, boots on the ground experience that she can help you with once you've been uh, settled with your itinerary. Okay, so. This is a little bit of an ambitious webinar. We're covering quite a few areas. I mean, it's a vast, you can see so much. There's so much to do and see in Chile and, all different seasons. But we're going to focus more on Patagonia and certain regions of Patagonia that we think are excellent places for like a first time, second time visitor to the region. They have a ton to offer in terms of like different activities, distinct regions with their different geographies. And so we're going to take you kind of north to south, Patagonia and Chile, and just briefly touch on how you can combine it with southern Patagonia in Argentina. And so, oops, I went ahead of myself. Sorry. So here's the Lake District up north. Um, and this has a lot of different like ecosystems and all these wonderful attributes that lend to like a lot of multi-sport activities. And then we have the Astral Road, the Carretera Astral, which is a world famous route. It's a beautiful, beautiful road. It goes through really remote regions of Patagonia, which is like a little further south that are affected by the northern Patagonian ice field. So it's a completely kind of different geography there. It also borders Argentina. So we're going to take you through this region. And as some of you may have heard, this one requires more time just to go to the region alone. And then we'll go further south to Torres del Paine, which is kind of the iconic national park, which you see in a lot of the photographs where you see like puma and these beautiful granite these huge granite mountains, rocks, formations. And there's a lot to do and see in this region as well. So this is also on the border of Argentina, where you can basically, go to both areas if you wish. We do combinations like that. But this is to give you, yeah, an idea of all these different places which can also be connected, depending on how much time you have. So our first stop is Rafa's home turf, um, where he lives and operates from. And so this is the Lake District. And so it's a pretty short flight from Santiago to Puerto Montt. And Puerto Montt is not usually where we have people stay. From here, you go to a town called Puerto Varas, which is a great hub for doing all these different things, in addition to accessing some different areas that we'll talk about as well. So, activity highlights, trekking, river rafting, world-class whitewater rafting in these areas, kayaking and fjords, rivers if you wanted to, horseback riding, e-biking or regular cycling, home-hosted meals, and this is kind of where we bring in the community, the Wiche community, hopefully I said it right, and yeah, cooking experiences, kind of those kinds of interactive experiences as well. So I'm going to let Rafa take it from here, and covering kind of Puerto Varas as our hub for multisport, and then we'll go to Cochamó and Tagua Tagua. And he can kind of tell you about how these are really distinct regions, but they all are geographically together in the same district.
Thank you, Lana. Well, thank you, everybody. Chile is the longest country in the world from north to south. We're speaking about more than 4,200 kilometers. And Patagonia is a vast region that is the southernmost area of the South American cone, let's say, the corner, the southern corner of the American continent. And we share this region between Chile and Argentina. And being a vast area, also sometimes maybe you may think that Patagonia is just one landscape with, of course, a lot of natural beauties and wonders, but it's very diverse being such a big area. When we speak about from north to south, only in the Patagonian region, we are speaking about more than 2,500 kilometers. So Patagonia in Chile start 1,000 kilometers south from Santiago, 700 miles approximately. So it's an hour and 40-minute flight from Santiago to Puerto Montt. This is the northern part of Patagonia in Chile, and it's known as the Lake and Volcanoes District. And it is diverse, Patagonia, from a cultural aspect to also natural aspect. From a cultural aspect, is diverse because in the north part of Patagonia, in the Lake District, we have a complete different population of indigenous culture that has an influence in the cuisine, in the architecture, in the style of life, known as the Huilliches, as mentioned by Lana in one of the activities that you can do here in the area. There is this interaction with the local communities and the Huilliche community. So we are speaking about a population that is related to the Mapuches, that are the largest population of indigenous people in Chile. And the rest of Patagonia, so we're speaking about Aysén and South Patagonia, where Torres del Paine is located, has an influence of another indigenous culture known as Tehuelches. And if you go farther south to Torres del Paine and Tierra del Fuego, there we're going to have more populations that are not related to the one of North Patagonia. So from a cultural aspect, there is a difference. The three regions has influence from Europe because they were settled by Europeans, especially the Lake District, with people that came from what is known today as Germany, but at the time was the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And the southernmost part of Patagonia was settled by Europeans that came from England, Italy, Croatia, Spain, and other countries from Europe. We are speaking about a colonization that has more than 200 years. And from a natural aspect, it's very diverse too, because the north part of Patagonia, Lake District, Lakes and Volcanoes District, is an area of temperate rainforest, the last temperate rainforest in the world, fjords, volcanoes, lakes, and rivers. While you go to the Aysén region, the central part, known as Carretera Austral also area, you got glaciers again, but you have also the transition between the temperate rainforest and the Patagonian steppe with a complete different forest, that is this transitional forest. You also got the fjords, you got glaciers, of course, you have mountain peaks, but not as many volcanoes as we got in the Lake District region. And then you go to South Patagonia, the third region where Torres del Paine is located. That is more an area of Patagonian steppe, so this kind of a tundra like landscape with strong winds, very wild, with a lot of glaciers too, mountains. Again, we have the fjords because all the Patagonian region is a region of fjords and spectacular landscape, where the most iconic one, of course, is Torres del Paine. This is just to give you an overview of how diverse is the Patagonian region in Chile. And it's diverse from the Patagonian region in Argentina too, because we have the Andes mountain range that separate both regions, and that has also the function to be like a natural barrier for the precipitations that come, from the Pacific Ocean. So there is a big rainfall, especially in the Chilean area of Patagonia. So the Chilean Patagonia is known to be a very green region with a lot of water, rivers, lakes, a lot of snow and ice also in our glaciers. Some of this precipitation crossed to the Argentinian side, especially in the southernmost part of Patagonia. And so you got in the Argentinian area of Patagonia more like a steppe landscape, much more than in the Chilean side where we got the forest and the fjords. So that can be also like a difference between the two areas in the two countries. The last thing before I continue with the Lake District, maybe many people is wondering how we call this area Patagonia, why we call it Patagonia. Patagon, it's a word that comes from a book, a romance, that was probably reading Ferdinand of Magellan at the time that he explored this corner of the world. And in this book, one of the characters was a giant. When Ferdinand Magellan came to Patagonia, they found in their expeditions that the native populations, especially in the south part of Patagonia, were taller than the Spanish of the time, of course, and also much taller and big than the indigenous population that they've been crossing paths with in the rest of the exploration of South America. So they called the area like the land of Patagones, so giants, because of this Tehuelches population. And that's how the name of Patagonia finally was created at that time. And we still got it today to identify this wonderful region of the world. Regarding the Lake District, that is also where I live. I live in the town of Puerto Varas. It's a town of 50,000 people, surrounded by national parks, by volcanoes. We have one of the most famous volcanoes of Chile here that is called the Osorno volcano, perfect conic shaped mountain, very alike the Fujiyama, to give you an idea about another iconic mountain of the world. We are surrounded by lake. The town is located at the shore of the lake too. And this is the perfect base to start different multi-sport adventures in the Lake District region and going farther south too. We got all the cultural elements very alive here. This is also a perfect region for interaction with local culture. And also is a very nice town to explore because it has a very human side town. People know each other everywhere, so they're very friendly. There are a lot of offer in terms of culinary experiences, activities to do, of course, outdoors, and we are very close to all the national parks that are located in this region. And when we start the exploration from this region, from Puerto Varas, if we go farther south, we can explore areas that are a little bit off the beaten trails, let's say, a little bit more remote. One of them is the Cochamó Valley, known also as the Yosemite of Chile. This is really one of the top destinations for rock climbers from all over the world. They come to Cochamó Valley because we have these granite peaks, as you can see here in the picture too, and these beautiful forests that surround the area. So it's the Mecca for climbers, very famous in all over the world. And in these last years, it became also very famous because local people from this valley, with the help of Chileans and donors from all over the world, were able to buy more than 150,000 acres of lands in this area to protect and create a big corridor, biological corridor in Patagonia. These areas were threatened for many years for real estate development, from development of hydroelectric plants. It was owned by a private company that tried to to build an hydroelectric plant in the valley that would basically change completely the geography of the place. And they weren't able to build this plant, and they gave a time frame to the local organization to collect 75 millions US dollar to buy the lands that they owned. So we started a big campaign all over the world to collect that money, and a few months ago we were successfully in this collection, and this organization, Conserva Pucheguin, that's the name of the organization that bought the land and collect the money with the help of Chileans and donors from all over the world, were able to collect the money and buy the lands to protect it and to preserve it for the next generation. So it's a really, really an iconic part of Patagonia, a hidden corner of Patagonia. It's not a place where all the travelers usually go. It's still very untouched, very remote, and spectacular in terms of landscapes and activities that you can do there. Some of the places are only reachable by foot or charter flights, or through a combination of drivings and navigations and ferry to cross some lakes or fjords. And it's a great destination for rock climbing, of course, but also for horseback riding, for hiking with hikes of different levels, from soft hikes to more demanding hikes. And it's one of the best destinations probably in the world for fly fishing too. We work also a lot with Elevate Destination with the local communities of the Cochamó Valley that we are in contact with, and that we work together with them. So it's a great destination for engagement with locals, and at the same time to enjoy areas that are starting to be visited by travelers, and that really are right now in this moment being discovered by people that have an adventure soul and want to be in these hidden gems of the Lake District. The rest of the area, sorry,
Oops.
yeah.
Oh, sorry. No, go ahead. Okay, you're on mute now, but I can see. So, no, just one thing we wanted to bring to everyone's attention as we go through this is that, we're really focusing on the regions, kind of like their different attributes, all this kind of nature travel aspect of the region. However, one thing we did want to make clear is like some of these areas, they have different levels of accommodation. And so that's something to take into account when you think about where you want to go and how how we'll plan your trip is, what your needs are in terms of accommodation, what creature comforts you can't go without, what you appreciate about your lodging, your accommodations, these kinds of things, because there's very few places to stay in some of these really remote areas, and we choose the best ones, and we are very selective about the ones that we use. But just so you know, like for this area, it's more of a refugio type of accommodation. So it's a little more simple, but it's, of course, very clean and warm and well managed and all of these things. But it's just something to keep in mind when you think about going to the region. There are very few places to choose from, and at a certain level, and so we go with the best ones. But I just wanted to touch on that because this is a remote lodge that you can only get into by foot, charter, horse. So sorry to interrupt you, but just wanted to bring that up.
Fine, please just interrupt me whenever you need to do it, Lana, because these are very, very important things to touch. As a matter of fact, here you got a picture of the refugio in Rincón Bonito in the Valley of Cochamó, where the people is going to have their own room, of course, and their own bathroom, but there are more like refugio style. As Lana was mentioning, these areas are areas that I think that one of the luxury part of the experience to be there is being there, being in one of these places that are still very untouched, and still are not in the mainstream of the travelers. So you really have this opportunity to explore these places with different kind of accommodation, as Lana was mentioning, always having comfort, very good food, because I have to say, and Lana and Emily knows that here in Chile we eat very well, I think. Organic food, that come from the place, local food, of course, but very good food, and very nice people also. There are the people that live in these valleys, the locals that are taking care of the place, and they are also sharing with us their life experience and their day life in these remote places. As Lana was mentioning, the only way to get to this place, to this valley here in Cochamó, in Rincón Bonito, is on foot or chartering a flight. And the way to get out is on a pack raft on the Ventisquero River. You got a picture here in the middle, or again by foot, or also flying. The walk, the hike to get to the place is a hike of around 14 miles, but it's pretty flat, let's say. It's not a hike where you go up, you don't gain too much elevation, but it's the only way to get there. So you can imagine the place where you're going to be if the only way to get in is through a flight or on foot. So it's really a special place. And the next area, moving from north to south in the Lake District, so starting from Puerto Varas as a base and going to the south, it's the area of the Lake Tawa. We started in this case, I have to say that we started from the south of the lake, and now we go to the north. Tawa is on the shore of the Tawa Lake. We stay there in a beautiful place that is a boutique lodge, let's say, with a very nice design, very good food, and very nice accommodations located in the shore of the Lake Tawa. This is a place that can be reached by vehicles, or can be reached also by flying or through navigations too, but there is a way to get through the ground to the lodge. And from here, we use it also as a base to have wonderful experiences in nature of kayaking, hiking, fly fishing, staying in a very nice place that is the Tawa Lodge. That has
Yes.
accommodation. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, the idea is that just to give you some places that you may not have heard of, and a lot of people hear of the Lake District and the Puerto Varas area and the famous volcano and everything, but um, when you're at this lodge, you're pretty much kind of the only people there, people staying at the lodge, because it's a private reserve. So it's very exclusive in that way. Do you want to say anything else about we have an itinerary on our website that shows this amazing circuit you can do of landing in Puerto Varas and then going to Tagua and Cochamó, and so it's a really nice. I think it's 8 days, something like this, ending back at Puerto Varas, where you can go and have some true Italian pizza at Raffaele's place. um, and yeah, so it's a beautiful way to explore the area. Is there anything else that you want to say about Tagua?
Yeah, I think that maybe we can move on to Aysén, and of course Lana and Emily they've been here, so they know very very well the area, and they can give you all the answer to your question about the Lake District region and the rest of Patagonia, of course, too.
Yeah, there's nothing like having Rafa here. Who, who lives there? Um, okay, so yeah, so now we're headed further south, as discussed, kind of going down the spine of Chile. And here we're going to talk about the Aysén region, which again is a very remote region. You can fly here from Puerto Montt. It's like an hour's flight. One thing I always try to do is put people on the sides of the plane that have the best views. I mean, the views are spectacular everywhere, but certain directions you get views of like the glaciers and the mountains, and it's just incredible. Um, and so yeah, and then you can also fly here directly, I think from Santiago, right, to Balmaceda? Or do you have to stop? Okay, you don't have to stop in Puerto Montt.
That's
Yeah.
correct, yeah.
Yeah, so that's like a 3 hour flight or something. So it's pretty great that you can fly into Balmaceda. We'll show you on the next map. But again, I mean, it's very distinct. All of these areas, you're going through a lot of, beautiful scenery along this road that connects. Actually, it does connect the Northern Lake District all the way down here, but we don't advise it unless you have a lot of time and a very rugged vehicle. It's not something we normally plan for people, but it is connected. So here, obviously tons of trekking, the landscape photography opportunities are amazing, the wildlife, things that you may or may not see in other areas. Um, and then, of course, glaciers, the horseback riding opportunities, kayaking, again, biking, these kinds of things. So, Aysén, it is a region that we're promoting more because it is one of those places that's like it's getting discovered. It's not that it's not discovered. That's a terrible word to use for it. It's well known, but not everyone has the time or takes the time to go there or even has it on their radar quite yet. So it is becoming more popular. And while we're in this kind of earlier stage of going somewhere where you can still have a really remote experience, we'd love our travelers to have that opportunity. Um, because there is kind of, people moving in little by little, and it will change over time, obviously, but it's still right now just super rugged, super remote, and spectacular. So it's along the route of parks, and now there's up to 17 parks, and part of this is a huge part is due in part to the Tompkin Foundation. So Douglas Tompkins and Chris Tompkins, he was the founder of North Face and Esprit. And years ago, they purchased a lot of land, and then they kept adding to it, and then they would, continually add to it, and then at some point turn it over to the Chilean government as national parks. So some of these we can visit on this actual route. And it's perfect. It's a perfect destination if you're interested in conservation, landscape photography, like I said, wildlife, the concept of rewilding, which we'll get into a little bit as well, which is part of the conservation piece. And then something that we're really dedicated to is trying to get tourist dollars into really remote areas. So people don't have to move out to cities, so they don't have to worry about whether or not they can keep doing what they're doing, which is being, part of the landscape. And so we like to support in ways that we can, getting people into these areas where there's very small little local communities, but then supporting them with our tourist dollars. So lots to do and see in the area. This is Balmaceda, where you fly into. There's things to do up here. We're not going to talk about them. We can organize them, and Rafa knows how to do them very well, but we're not going to focus up this way. So we're going to kind of take this circuit down here. And these are some national parks, the Glacier, Cerro Castillo, the very famous Patagonia National Park, namesake park. And then we'll stop at some other spots along the way. So shall I keep going, Rafa? Next slide.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. So Iceland experiences, we'll kind of talk about those as we go through each stop. Again, we've kind of mentioned some of those, but just exquisite scenery. And it is it can be a harsh environment. So something to take into account, just giving yourself enough time to, if one day isn't the perfect weather for something, you have another day to do it. And we always come up with alternatives, but it is, yeah, you're in the elements. So here's our first stop, Cerro Castillo National Park. Again, there's very few places of our what do I say? Requirements to stay in the region. And so this lodge that you're seeing a photograph of here is beautiful, and it's surrounded by mountains, and you can just walk out from your lodge and go hiking. It's not in the actual park, but it's very close to the national park. And the owners are actually, they've had safari lodges as well, because when we were touring it, I was like, I feel like I'm in a safari lodge. Anyway, it's just very tasteful, it's very beautiful, it's beautifully located, and it's a very kind of cozy place as well. They do shared meals, etc. So But the national park is obviously one of the main highlights, and it's a great place to, do hikes. There's some unique things about the area that I'll let Rafa speak to. But again, conservation initiatives. When you're driving in, there's a new center for what is the Andean deer, which is critically endangered, called the Huemul, and some excellent veterinarians that are helping to run that. So there's a lot of issues with like cattle in the area and spreading disease to these very delicate populations of Huemul. And so you can stop there if that interests you along the way, or you can see what they're doing. Um, and then we were lucky to see a huge family of Huemul along the way. So I never thought I'd be so excited to see deer. And it was really wonderful. And yeah, so and then again, this is a region where we work with some local communities. I'm going to let Rafa talk about that as well, but we can organize things with a local woman that has a lovely pension, and she can do meals, cookouts, things like this, barbecues, and wonderful local musicians from the area that play traditional music. And so those are kinds of things that we can build in to an itinerary, and we like to build in because it builds our relationships with the local communities as well. Oops, no, we're gonna stay there. Sorry. But yeah, I'm gonna let Rafa just talk about some of the things that you can do in the national park in terms of hikes and the highlights.
Yeah, thank you, Lana. Well, this is really all the areas that we are covering in this webinar are part of probably one of the largest and more ambitious conservation programs in the world. When you think about the idea of connect more than 2,500 kilometers of area in Patagonia and create a network of 18 national parks, it means really a lot. It means a lot of territory. It means a lot of work with local communities. It means a very ambitious plan in terms to transform or preserve these areas as a natural wonder for everybody that lives in the planet. But at the same time, how to project also the visitation of these places so travel can become force of conservation. And I think that that's the way that things are being doing here in Patagonia. So it's nice to know that this area, this vast area that we are talking about, and specifically also speaking about Aysén is the heart of this project of conservation with in the North area, the initiative that we have for the conservation of the Andean deer and other species that are endangered. The fact that this area can connect through a big corridor, biological corridor, with the area of the Lake District, the south of the Lake District. We are speaking about the area of Pumalina and Cochamó and Tahuatahua that we saw before, like a big biological corridor for species to have and to connect. And then the southern part of the Cerrino with Park Patagonia, an iconic park because it was basically a big cattle ranch that was bought piece by piece, so land by land, but different owners. It was under a big work of restoration and rewilding, so trying to get the nature back to the area, successfully done, by the way, by the Rewilding Foundation, but not only by Rewilding Foundation, but by the local people that believe that travel, responsible travel, can really become their way to preserve their places and to develop a positive impact economy in the other destination. So it's really, visiting a part of the recent history of the planet, of South America, and of course of Chile and Patagonia. This area is well known by the national parks. We have in the north area where we get there, and these pictures are from Cerro Castillo, the National Park Cerro Castillo. One of the good things of Patagonia, and speaking about specifically Cerro Castillo National Park, is that despite the fact that when you think about Patagonia, you may have in your mind a big, wild, and very physically demanding destination in terms of outdoor activities. And what we have in Patagonia is that we have a wide array of options for everybody to enjoy it. And this is very important when we talk about, for example, hikes. Every park has multiple trails, from trails that are easy trails of soft hike of a couple of kilometers, 3 miles, to more, of course, demanding trails that can be multi-days trekkings of more than 40 miles of hike. So you're always going to find, not only in Aysén, but in each of the areas that we visit in Patagonia, you're always going to have a wide array of options to enjoy the destination in the way that you wanted to enjoy it when you are visiting the area. That happened in Cerro Castillo when we have hikes from 3 miles, even less, 2 miles, to longer hikes of multi days, visiting areas where you get very nice views of the peaks of the mountains, glaciers, lagoons in the middle of the mountain where you're not going to find any other human being. And that is one of the things that Aysén gives a lot. Is an area that is not an area with a lot of population. Just to give you an idea, the whole population of Patagonia, we are speaking about a very big area, is no more than 1,200,000 people, of which of them, most of the population is concentrated in the Lake District region, so in the north part of Patagonia, while Aysén and South Patagonia are areas where there are more ships, really, than people. And so you really got the feeling that it's a true feeling that you are exploring areas where very little, few human beings are being explored, or are at the same time that you are exploring this section of the park. And the same happened in Park Patagonia, that is the southern part that we explore in the Aysén region, where we have this. This was the last park created by Tompkins Conservation, that currently is known as Rewilding Foundation, before the death of Douglas Tompkins. As a matter of fact, in the park, in the cemetery, you got the grave of Douglas Tompkins in Park Patagonia. This park is a vast area that also has a lot of option of trails, and at the same time has a lot of option for landscape photography, wildlife encounters. So it's really, really an area with many and multiple options for everybody to enjoy, from families to more adventurous people, for people that wants to have an easy pacing during the trip, and in between, because we are speaking about Cerro Castillo National Park.
Jumped ahead to Patagonia.
Uh, and then Parpadago in the south, you got the Austral Road, this road that connects the Aysén region, known is a legendary road because it's like the route number 66, the Route 60, that is being built for the last 50 years. And if you look at a map, you're going to realize why, because when you look at a map, you say, how they're going to make a road there? Fjords, glaciers, mountains, volcanoes. This road that connect these two sections of Aysén region have multiple places also to enjoy unique experiences, like, for example, the pictures that is right now in the presentation, the marble caves at Lago General Carrera. The Lago General Carrera is the second largest lake of South America, and you got this limestone turned to marble formation that you can explore on a kayak, like we did with Lana a few months ago. Lana, how was the experience there in the marble caves?
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. I mean, the color of the water from the minerals is like spectacular, against the caves themselves. And then at one point there's like condors flying overhead and, landing on these, mountains above more cliffs. But yeah, it was stunning, beautiful. And we got really, really lucky with the weather. It is weather dependent, like everything in Patagonia. So I think we try to hit it a little bit earlier in the day because sometimes the wind picks up in the afternoon. So, it is weather dependent, but they give you, all your gear and yeah, it's something to definitely experience if you're in the region. Don't skip it. We won't let you skip it.
Yes, this is Laguna San
And in the
Rafael
same
National
area.
Park.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, please, Lana. Go ahead.
I was just going to quickly say that is the Marble Caves is something that you can do en route to your next lodge. So along the carretera, so you'll start in Cerro Castillo, and then we can stop there en route and just do the activity, and then head on to your next base, which is where you'll explore Patagonia National Park. However, if you really want to see a glacier, there is the park, the Laguna San Rafael National Park, where you can, go out and see the glacier. But to do that, you need to spend 2 nights. And so there's a refugio, a really nice little lodge that we work with there. So you can spend 2 nights. So you can do the marble caves. You stay overnight. It's in a tiny, tiny little town on the edge of the lake. Um, but there's a great restaurant there. And yeah, it's an experience in and of itself, that little town. And then the following day, it takes a full day to go out to the glacier. But I'll let you speak to this a little bit. It's a boat navigation and anything else you want to mention, Rafa?
Yeah, yeah. It's I think that it's if you are into you want to have an experience, a close experience with a glacier. This is an activity that you may enjoy it a lot because the navigation takes you to this area of the northern ice fields. In Patagonia, in Chile, especially on the Chilean side, but also in the Argentinian side a little bit, we have the largest reservoir of ice in the world after the poles in Greenland. They are known as the southern and the northern ice fields. And if you look at a map of South America, of the south of South America, you're going to see these big areas, white color, that practically go from the Andes to the Pacific Oceans, and those are the ice fields. And as a matter of fact, when you fly in to Aysén, or where you fly from the Lake District to South Patagonia, as Lana was mentioning about the fact that you are on the plane and you got beautiful views from the plane, wherever you look at. One of the most dramatic and spectacular views that you got from the planes is when you are flying over the ice fields. It's amazing because we are speaking about a vast area covered by ice. And as Lana was mentioning, if you want to do it here, the good thing is that everything is on the way. You can have an itinerary that starts in Cerro Castillo and finish in Park Patagonia, and in the middle is not just transportation time, but in the middle you have a lot of places like this, Laguna San Rafael, or the Marble Caves in Lago General Carrera, where you can stop and do these activities that are pretty unique. And as Lana was mentioning here, in this case, you need, of course, a couple of days because the navigation to the glacier takes a whole full day. So you can combine it, for example, with the marble caves and spend a couple of nights in Puerto Rio Tranquilo and then continue further south. That is really a very nice experience of glacier visiting. And the
Exactly.
Patagonia National Park, it's where with Lana we were lucky enough to be guided by Chris Tompkins. Lana, remember? You want to speak a
Yes,
little bit about this
amazing.
experience here?
Oh yeah. So yeah, we were fortunate enough to meet Chris in her home where she feels most at home. And they had established when I don't know when they finished the museum, Rafa, but they have an incredible museum there that's interactive, talking about conservation of the area, the species, the how it was created, um, and talks a lot about kind of loss of biodiversity and why it's important to protect biodiversity. I think it was a very costly endeavor. The materials are really beautiful. It's just very beautifully made. And so it's kind of like a visitor center, but it's actually called the Museum of Patagonia because it's the level of the presentation. It feels like a natural history museum in the middle of a national park. Um, and we were able to witness some, condors that had been rescued and taken to the park to be released. However, they take like, because they were raised in captivity, they have to kind of stay enclosed for a while and essentially learn how to be condors. So then the wild condors come and kind of show them how to how to condor. So they'll come and, eat at carcasses, the wild condors. And so they watch this for a while, and then when they're released, they hopefully have all the skills they need to survive in the wild. And so that was really spectacular to be there and witness it with, the founder of the park. And again, as we mentioned, when you're driving in, it's hard to, I mean, if you're a landscape photographer, obviously you know how to create a good photograph to capture scale. But for those of us that are, amateur iPhone photographers or whatnot, it's just very hard to like capture the scale of these landscapes. They're so beautiful and so huge and so wild, and you really feel like you're in on a secret when you're in this park because it's just you drive in and it's just immense and beautiful. But then you come to the visitor center and this museum, and there is a lodge. Back to kind of lodging talk. This is an area where there's very few places to stay. I mean, people do camp in there, and there's some campsites and things, but it's not easy. Like, how do you get your food because it's so remote? And so we work with a couple of lodges. There's a lodge and kind of a lodge group that we work with in other parks as well, and in Patagonia. And they have a concession to have this lodge in the park. And so you're right there in the middle of the park. It is the most costly of stays. It's a very high-end experience. They have in-house activities if you want that kind of thing. And you're right there. So there's like guanacos walking around, grazing in front of the windows there, and it has a beautiful dining area, very sophisticated. So it's a beautiful place to stay. We oftentimes actually have people stay at a different lodge, however, that's an hour from the park. It's called Baker, and it's Bordebaker. And that's how they say it. So it takes your ear a minute to
That's correct.
uh, understand which lodge you're hearing, but it's along the Baker River and it's absolutely stunning. Beautiful views of the river. The chef is like amazing there. It's super cozy. There's a huge wood stove and, he's cooking, and it feels like a homestay in a way, but you have like a private cabin. I think I'm getting ahead of myself on that here, but let me just quickly show you. This is the Baker River. The color is stunning. And, these are the views outside your rooms, and they're just big picture windows in the dining area. And so, you can have private meals or they can do it, family style. And so that's where you're kind of based, if, depending on the budget that you want to allocate to this kind of trip, whether you stay in the park or you stay an hour away, that you can't go wrong. Um, and when you're an hour away, we just do like day trips. And so you can plan ahead, talk to your guide. You'll be with a guide, one of Rafa's team, while you're staying there, which is also nice to have that continuity of the guide throughout. And so you decide out of the 750,000 acres that are available for hiking, which hikes you want to do. Um, and just discuss the different levels. And so we did a really nice kind of easier hike, but the wildlife was amazing. The birding is amazing. The views are incredible. So you can choose what you want to do and see for those days. And I'm gonna let Rafa kind of just briefly, just keeping an eye on the time because we're covering these huge areas, but just briefly kind of talk about the rewilding in the area. There's again the Andean Huemul, and then there's a large flightless bird called the rhea. So I'm just going to kind of let you quickly talk about the rewilding of the place because this was all
Yeah,
private land.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes. Rewilding means to get nature back to the destinations, in this case to their original habitat. And the rewilding process usually starts with the reintroduction of the large herbivores to the places that you want to restore, basically. So what the foundation did here was to take first and work hard in the reintroduction of the guanaco that you can see in the picture here, large herbivores, and the huemul, the Andean deer that we also hear about it when we were speaking about Cerro Castillo. Once the large herbivores are back, all the chain started to regenerate, get into the apex of the chain. There are the pumas in this case that are also getting back to the park and are being monitoring through this rewilding program in the National Park Patagonia. Of course, having the pumas back, you also get more carcasses available. That means also that the condors are having, so everything is connected. And among the large herbivores, we have to consider also the rheas. And when we spoke at the beginning about the fact that this was a big ranch, so there were a lot of fences, uh, separated pieces of land from another. One of the big jobs here for the rewilding work was to get rid of all the fences that were around this whole area that today is a national park. That was probably one of the toughest work, because we are speaking about thousands of kilometers of barbed wire that needed to be removed. We are still working on that in order to make for the wildlife to be able to run free through the park. That is something necessary, of course, when you are doing a natural habitat restoration. But I would say that this is probably one of it's amazing to experience in person when you visit this place, among all the beautiful landscapes, among all the hikes that you can do. Again, it's a park that has hike from, easy ones to more demanding ones. So you got all the options, the photography, the wildlife encounters, but it's also like a very unique to be witness of a rewilding, a successful rewilding work in progress in a large scale as it was done here in the National Park Patagonia. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I also kind of skimmed over, Chris a bit when I said Dove Tompkins, founded North Face and Spree. Chris also ran Patagonia for many, many years. And then they, fell in love with this landscape and decided that they wanted to protect it and kind of left their, for those of you that haven't heard the story of them or whatnot, there is a documentary as well, but, left behind their corporate lives to, you know, focus on conservation and land protection in this area. And yeah, it's just incredible to go there and see all of these places that they've protected and helped to protect. And now they've handed it over, like, we said, to the Chilean government. And this Rewilding Chile group was Tompkins Foundation turned Rewilding Chile. So they're, the ones that are kind of taking over how to get funding and how to perpetuate this work and this conservation of the area. We also got to meet some very cool biologists, all different kinds of people from different parts of the country, but have become really fallen in love with this area, and so are working here as biologists. Some really cool female biologists that run programs and just live out here. And an interesting connection is where I live, there's a Panthera puma specialist, and he did his graduate work in here, and so it was before a lot, he'd be out there like 6 months out of the year studying puma, and they're much harder to see in this area than they are other regions that we're going to touch on next. But that's part of it, is like bringing back their prey species, right? To get more wildlife into the area. So we're going to move on. We've talked about Board Baker Lodge, to a very special region, and it's not something that everyone will have the time for, and it's not necessarily going to talk about an estancia stay. So this is something that is a huge part of the culture of Patagonia, are these estancias. So essentially what, Chris and Doug bought these vast estancias where people would, where ranchers essentially, ovejeros in Chile and gauchos in Argentina. It's kind of synonymous, gauchos used in both countries, but it's a term for like, shepherd slash rancher. And these are, haciendas in other countries, but these large estancias, and there's still very tons of private estancias all over. And one of them that we work with is a very unique and authentic homestay, in the sense that they're still practicing, they're still raising cattle. You're staying with a working family's estancia. However, they're the most gracious, wonderful hosts and have a beautiful, beautiful property. Again, it's like you're getting in on a secret. Like, there's no other reason to go there unless you're really into these, remote areas. And so this is like a very comfortable and special place to visit. It's along the lake, the the Carrera General lake shore there. And so they have access, by boat to go out to glaciers and a whole other set of marble caves that you can go to. And again, it's like you're not going to see other tourists really, or other travelers. So this estancia um, is excellent, like horseback riding, and the owner, he's very dedicated to like conservation and kind of bringing this concept to the community. And he's working with Rewilding Chile to, set up camera traps for Huemul and see how they move, and then also move his cattle so that the Huemul aren't in contact with them and spreading disease. Um, and a whole host of other things. But he's kind of like a leader in the area. So we also want to support this and get people to go there and experience, it was one of the best things I've done in a very long time. It was absolutely a wonderful experience. Um, and so it is far, it's kind of like geographically, Rafa can explain it better, but it's another drive from Board Baker Lodge. And so you need kind of some extra days to do this. And I think, minimum 2 nights, definitely 3 nights. But you could spend 3 to 4 nights there. And it's the kind of thing, it's like when you get into these landscapes, you feel like, oh God, when am I going to come back? I got to get back here because there's always something more to see. Um, but yeah, this is just, if you have the time, I really recommend doing something like this. It is a little bit unconventional in the sense that you're staying in, they have a separate home, but it's like a home atmosphere. So some rooms have private bathrooms, some rooms have shared bathrooms, but they're very spacious. They're like beautiful views out your window. It's just looking onto the lake. And so it's just it's like a different concept in that you're having, family meals. So it's like a homestay, kind of with a hotel approach. But yeah, very, very comfortable. And so, yeah, is there anything else that you wanted? I mean, one of the things is just to know that it takes a full day to get back to Balmaceda from this estancia. Um, but sorry, I talked about it. You know how much I loved it. So I'm doing all the talking about.
It's
Rafa, please chime in. Oh, the
it's
fossil.
great. If you cover it completely, for me it's also highlights also in the sense that you got the opportunity to interact also with the family that has been they are pioneers basically.
Yeah, right.
They've been in this area where there was no way to get in. They had to build the way to get into the place where they are. So, man, they are also responsible ranchers because they work in communication and in very, very well connected to the work that Rewilding is doing to the conservation of the Andean deer. So they are taking care of their cattle in order to not interfere with the reintroduction of the Andean deer in the area. So there, I think it's really a unique opportunity.
Yeah.
This place is located in the other shore of the lake, General Carrera, geographically speaking. But if you got the time and you would like to have an experience that it's deeply connected to the local, to the history of the destination, and at the same time being in a more remote place in an already remote area, well, this is a good place to do it.
Yeah. I think something that was the most impressive. Oh, sorry, Rafa.
No, I'm
Okay.
fine.
Something that was the most impressive was like the pioneer aspect is incredible where they, it's only been 80 years, but 80 years ago, you have to think they were going into this rugged area and they were bringing everything in from the lake or over the mountains on horses is how they all started. So, by boat on this very temperamental lake with crazy conditions at times, and then, bringing things in by horse. And then eventually I think his grandfather or his grandfather, yeah, built an airstrip and brought everything, started bringing in things by plane. But serious pioneers. I mean, these are tough people, tough and very kind.
Yeah.
Um, so I see that we're an hour in. So I think we're going to try and give like, 10 to 15 minutes for these next destinations and then give people time that are still here, um, you know, space to ask questions. So this is our almost last stop. It's our third stop, which is Torres del Paine, which is the most southern spot that we're taking you today. Um, and this is that iconic park, the one that you should want to go to. It's fantastic. Beautiful photographs of it when you see photographs of Patagonia. Um, and there's a ton that you can do. in this park. And it has beautiful lodging. The lodging options are varied, you know, everything from geodesic domes with wood fires to, you know, really beautiful, luxurious hotels that have spas and, you know, stunning views, all these things. So, again, you know, a luxury is just being in the place. It's the vastness. It's, you know, having the space. So, you really can't go wrong anywhere you stay because there's fantastic opportunities right out the door everywhere. Um, but there's some really unique things that you can do in this area. First off, you can fly there directly from Santiago, or you can hopscotch it. You know, if you stop in the Lake District, Puerto Montt, you can fly to Puerto Natales. If you're coming from Balmaceda, you have to go back up to Puerto Montt and then fly down. But you know, they're scenic flights and they're pretty short, so it's not bad at all. And then when you get to Puerto Natales, depending on, you know, there are places to stay in Puerto Natales, and you can do day trips into the park from there. It's my preference to always put everyone in the park, or there's some really beautiful lodges. Being in the park is a relative term because there's actually places that are considered outside of the park, but they're within the landscape of the park. So very easy to get around. But yeah, it's about a half an hour drive in general to reach the park entrance. But depending on where you're staying, it could be a bit of a longer drive to get to your actual residence. So yeah, I mean, again, why do we encourage people to visit this beautiful place? You know, glacial lakes. You get to visit Gray Glacier. It's a concession, so one company runs the boat. So we try to get you tickets, you know, in advance, and secure things out as far as possible so that we can get you access to whatever you want to see. Um, and that's a navigation. It's like 150 people. It's a small boat. They do a great job. But there's also, you know, opportunities to go ice trekking. Um, and we don't know how long we're going to be able to offer that to people. So if that's something that interests you, you know, Emily can speak to that. She did it most recently, and then you can also do kayaking. You go out and see the icebergs fairly close up. Um, and then, you know, great place for wildlife photography, landscape photography, puma tracking, fishing. I mean, it has it all. There are estancias in the area too. So if you want to do an estancia stay, you know, there's estancias all over. So it's not just the one that La Naviera that we were talking about that you can stay at. There's a lot of different estancias, and there's some, you know, near the park, that have their own huge pieces of land, that you can explore as well. Again, the different things, there's so many different hikes that you can do. And whether or not you do a difficult hike, you're going to have amazing scenery. That's just the way it is. So you can, you know, walk as little as or as much as you'd like. You can do sections of larger trails. Again, the ice trekking, the navigation. We're going to go into a little bit more about the puma tracking because it's a very unique place to do that. Horseback riding, tons of different rides that you can do, full day, half day, you know, really advanced, beginner as well. So, all different kinds of rides. The puma tracking, so you have the highest density of pumas found in the world in this region of southern Patagonia. And the cool thing is that you can see them. I don't know where everyone's coming from, but I live in the Pacific Northwest, and I live in an area where there's an extremely high density of cougars, as we call them, but I never have seen one, and I kind of am glad because they're kind of an ambusher. So, um, so I haven't seen one. Well, no, that's not true. I have seen one. I have, but it was under circumstances of research. So here you can see them in the you know open spaces, which is incredible, but they're very hard to spot without a trained eye, because they're so well camouflaged. So this is something that we can set up as it's usually a full day activity. You start really early. You know, animals are active in the morning and the evening, so it's a split day. And so you start in the morning, and there's different ways to do it. We work with a couple of different providers that we think do it most ethically. It's something that needs to be better regulated in the park. to be honest. And so we're really selective about, and Rafa is very selective about who he partners with to do these activities, um, and give you the best opportunities to see them possible with very experienced trackers. And if you wanted to do something that like was very focused on photography, you can do longer programs. Most of our travelers are fine with 1 day, but it is available to do 2 to 5 days if you really want to focus on some photography, or you just are really interested in the species. There's an estancia that we also go to. It's a private property that is adjacent to the park, and it's one of the most productive places for seeing them. So they've delivered really excellent sightings and opportunities. They are incrementally every year raising their prices. So if it's something you really want to do, and this is a very good place to do it sooner rather than later, because every year they're realizing they have a very good thing. Um, sorry, I did a lot of that talking, Rafa, but is there anything you want to add about the?
Yeah, it's wonderfully introduced, Lana. You've been with us doing this, so you know how it is with the Pumas and everything. So I don't have anything to add. Just a little thing that we are in contact with Elevate with Pantera here in South America. Nico, one of the researchers of the Puma, is a very good friend of mine too. So we are always communicated with them and with him specifically in order to run this trip, as Lana mentioned it, in the most ethical and always keeping in mind that the behalf of the Puma is in the first place
Yeah,
when you do this kind of activity. So you can be sure that we are following the most strict ethical rules for Puma observation in a destination that, as Lana mentioned, has the highest density in the world of pumas. Yeah.
yeah, they're beautiful. Um, all right. So again, accommodation, you really have a lot of different options. Some are quite small, in that they have few rooms, or few, domes. Um, and so again, it is one of those places that I encourage people to minimum plan 6 months in advance. I mean, we do help. I've had people come to me, a month before, and we can scramble and put something together, that's, a trip that I would want people to take. However, minimum 6 months, I would say, because it's a very desirable destination, and there are special places to stay, and we want to put you there. Um, a year in advance, pretty much guarantees that we can get you everything that you want. And things like the ice trekking and the kayaking, because they're based on concessions, it's important that we book those out, in advance. And we have to secure those things for you in advance, or on a schedule, whatever they set up as their schedule. So it's just kind of important to have those details when we're planning of things that are like your non-negotiable experiences, so that we can make sure that you're planning far enough in advance to build those into your itinerary. Um, this is Explora Lodge, and they are on a lake, Petrohue. Did I say it right? Petrohue?
POE,
Petrohue.
POE.
And yeah, so they just have, like, as you can see, they have this incredible view. You just feel like, I don't know, it's just when you're sitting in their dining area, it's something unique. You're just warm, you're having a cold drink, and you're looking out at this incredible view of the mountains, watching condors soar. And then there's a boardwalk that kind of goes around it that's actually part of the national park. So it's kind of this nice hybrid where you're in the park, but you're also in this incredible private lodge. Um, and that's one of the places that we use quite often. Also, these domes that you're seeing is a camp that we've worked with for many, many years. And they have great wildlife programs. And as you can see, they're right, here at what are called the Torres del Paine. And you can walk out from your lodge, kind of like Explora, and just start, hiking. And here you can actually walk out from your lodge and do the base of the towers hike, which is fantastic. It's a full day hike. It's one of the harder ones, but very worthwhile. Um, and then Patagonia Camp, which is in a different part of the park. These are in kind of different parts of the park. And so depending on that as well, like if you have a shorter stay, we'll kind of think about that too strategically, like where we put you so you can do all the activities. But if you have more time and you want to spend, up to 6 nights in the park, for example, you can even stay in different parts of the park and just really kind of dig into those different regions and do the things to limit your drive time, to get to the different highlights. Uh, and then, wait, did you want to say anything about Torres del Paine? Great birding.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
no, you cover
Fantastic
everything,
birding.
Lana. Yeah, you
Okay.
cover. That's fine.
Emily, did you want to add anything?
Just that this is a place where, I'd been dreaming of going there for over 20 years and it lived up to every aspect of my expectations and hopes. Like it was mind-blowingly beautiful and incredibly worth the long flights to get there and all of the effort to get it all planned. I 100% think you should go here. So I mean it's the place that people know the best, but also for a very good reason. So
Yeah.
I think what I really like in this webinar is the combination of places that people aren't as aware of, and then Torres del Paine, where people know where it is, but we know how to get you to the parts of the parks where you're still going to feel like you have special access.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And we also know how to plan things so that like, time of year we can advise on that. And yeah, just how to set up an itinerary to kind of limit how trails might be at different times of the year as well. Some are more crowded. December peak season is always going to be the most crowded, the most costly, but it's sometimes when families, it's the only time they have to go. And that's, we'll plan around that. But definitely plan that in advance, at least a year or more, for peak season, which is, anywhere from December 20th to January 15th. Um, Outside of that, in our winter months, it's still peak, but that holiday season's peak. So another thing, what did I want to say about this? Oh yeah, just that we haven't touched on seasonality. And so we were there in October because we also attended a great adventure travel summit. But October is also a time when you can go, and there's very few other travelers. Um, so that is a really good time, October, and then also April, like early April, late March. And I'm not saying that those kind of shoulder seasons of like early November or, March are, super crowded or anything, but just that those specific kind of edges of those of shoulder seasons, as we call them, are very much less, travelers there essentially. So a good time to go. October can be a little windier than March, but it varies all the time because it's a very dynamic climate. So we can talk more about seasonality, but pretty much you can go anytime between, mid-October to mid-April and have a chance to at some really great weather. And then you get spring flowers or you get the fall foliage. Um, and then I felt it was necessary to kind of talk about how you can connect the two southern Patagonia regions. We're not going to delve a lot into Argentina. That could be its own webinar. Um, but just that you can easily combine the two. And we do often have people do that. Something to keep in mind is that the two parks or the two regions like Calafate, which you may have heard of, and El Chalten are similar in that they have granite peaks, and so it's like similar topography and kind of a similar aesthetic in general, some scenery. Um, but they are great to combine in that you get different experiences in each place. And so it's easy to connect the two by just driving. No flights necessary. It's about a 6 hour transfer, a very easy border crossing. And so you can just do it in a day. And then if you want to do the trip in reverse, you can start in Buenos Aires, and then fly to Calafate, and then you can do the road transfer into Torres del Paine. There's a lot of differences in terms of like how you kind of set up the two destinations as well, which is something that we can also help you with. But due to how you get around in the Argentinian region, you kind of need a little bit more time. So Calafate is known for an enormous glacier, Perito Moreno, accessible by, they have a boardwalk so you can see it. You're a bit further back. Emily was there most recently and did like an amazing kayak trip where it's one of those places where you can get up close to the kayak. I mean, you could get up close to the glacier.
We could hear it. That was the thing that
Yeah.
was so incredible about this glacier is it's moving all the time and you can hear like these creaking, cracking noises. And then we had it's a calving glacier, so pieces fall off in the water and we saw it. It was right there in front of us. Obviously, they keep you back far enough that it's safe, but it was just remarkable. And that's one of those experiences where there's only one operator who has access and we can get you into that experience. So, I mean, everyone else can get kind of close, but they're in a big boat, whereas you're on your own power and it's silent and you can hear everything. It's amazing.
Yeah. So there are different, depending, sometimes we do multi-generational trips and not everybody can kayak or whatnot. So there is a boat navigation, and, the boardwalk, the kayaking. And then there's also mini ice trekking on the glacier as well for those that want to get their feet on the ice. And so this is an area that's like a gateway to El Chaltén, which is Mount Fitzroy, which is kind of like the towers, as you see these big basalt columns, not basalt, granite columns. And it's another very famous, famously photographed part of Patagonia. Um, and yes, we kind of, touched on some of the activities that you can do. Again, unique accommodation. So there's a really beautiful estancia here as well. It does take some planning in that you need to, get there the day before. So think you're doing a 6-hour drive, then you're going to get to Calafate, you're going to stay overnight, and then take an early ferry. It's only accessible by ferry. So some of these things, it's like there's, these planning details that we need to have enough time to make sure to fit everything in. This isn't the only place to stay, of course, but it's like pretty
My
spectacular.
favorite.
Yeah.
It was so amazing. They just got a Michelin key. The food's amazing. And you're in the middle of absolutely empty space. It's one of the concessions that was a family held property that is now in the middle of Glacier National Park. So you are the only people for miles and miles around. And the only way to get there is by boat.
Yeah. And they have like a fossil hike that you can do there as well. There's incredible different activities that you can do, horseback riding, etc. So it's a nice place to spend 2 or 3 nights, and just really enjoy being in this remote destination. It takes 3 hours to get to El Chaltén from Calafate. It's a 3-hour drive, and there's a cute little town there. You can stay in the town, and there's like different lodges and what they call hostales, which aren't hostels. They're more like inns, or little hotels. Um, and then, again, world-class hiking, amazing hiking. And then if you wanted to stay somewhere that's more kind of a unique luxury option, Explora has another hotel, and it's outside of town. So if you want the town atmosphere and you want to go out to different places for dinner and kind of have that, feel that, mountain town vibe, Explora is a bit further out. So it's just something to keep in mind. And then they also have like excellent food. And it's one of those places where you're just staring at a glacier, in front of your lodge. And then they have all different kinds of activities that you can choose from. But you do need, I think, minimum 2 nights, because you're making the drive there and back. 3 nights is probably best. So we're up to at least, 5, 6 nights just on this side. And so that's something that we can talk about, whether you want to incorporate it. Anything to add about this Argentinian side?
No, it's just, I mean, it was fascinating. I had really been focused on Chile, and then when I got across the border to Argentina, it felt very different, even though you have a similar, ecosystem and similar style, like type of geology in the peaks. It did feel really, really different. So I liked both sides, and they're both different and unique. So can definitely recommend including both Argentina and Chile if you have the time.
Yeah. And I mean, we're not even touching on all the other things that you could do as like add-ons to your Patagonia trip or second trips, which is like Atacama Desert. There's the wine country in both countries, which, you have these amazing wines and vineyards. And even if you're not taking time to visit those areas, still you're going to be served like, if you drink wine, you're going to be served like fantastic wine throughout your entire trip. So you can taste wines from all over. They have, some of these places have extensive cellars and everything. So you get that component of the country as well. Um, and the cities, we can focus on, whether you fly into Buenos Aires, we can do touring there, or Santiago. Santiago's a lovely city. So just depending on where you fly into, we can also help with that. So how much time is needed in each region? I realize I should have included something here on seasonality, but I think we kind of covered that. Um, but yeah, so I'd say, for the Lake District, you could spend 2 nights there and you could do a really nice day tour for one of them, if you wanted to stop. And because it is kind of a nice jumping off point to other places, but you could easily spend a week there, visiting these more remote areas, depending on, the goal of your trip. And I send minimum 7 night or 7 days, 6 nights. You could obviously do longer. You could do 9 nights, 10 days. The drive times are something to keep in mind. You are on the road when you're making your transfers between places, but it's beautiful scenery. I mean, here in the US, it takes a while to get places, but it's worth it when you're, driving in Colorado in fall and you have these beautiful leaves changing colors and mountains all around. So, um, I wouldn't try to do it for probably less than a week in Iceland unless you specifically wanted to go to like Cerro Castillo and then leave or something, or San Rafael Glacier. We can do that too. Um, and then Torres del Paine, yeah, minimum 3 nights. Again, you're making the big trip down there, and you could spend up to a week. And there's places even outside the park. There's estancias outside the park that are worth visiting. We can do things down at the tip by Punta Arenas where you can go and, we didn't even touch on penguins. If you want to see penguins, there's all different things that we can add on. Um, and then in terms of popular combinations, we'll often mix the Lake District with Torres del Paine, Aysén and Torres del Paine, and then the Lake District and Aysén is also a nice, like if you've been down to Southern Patagonia and you want to come back and do something different, that's also a really nice combination. And then, of course, doing, the Southern Patagonia with Chile and Argentina, and then mixing other things, on either country into that itinerary. It's infinite, the combinations of things that you can do in these two places. So, we have, uh, for those of you that have traveled with us, you know that we kind of provide all of this preparation for your trip. We help with the design of the trip, based on what you want to do and see and experience. It's very customized to you specifically. And then, we give you everything you need leading up to it. Emily is very thorough. Neve, our other operations team member, is extremely thorough. And we make sure you have, all the packing information you need, pre-trip advising on everything from, shoe wear to, boy, I don't even know. Yeah, anything. If you have a specific wine you want to drink the entire time, we can set that up. And then we can assist with booking regional flights. So if there's any issues while you're traveling, we had people that couldn't get there for a couple of days because of the snowstorm that hit New York. And so we were able to, reach out to our flight person and they got them onto their flights and all of those kinds of things, to just help make it as seamless as possible. And then, of course, all your in-country transportation is carried or taken care of for you. And then, guided excursions and all of that. And then you have in-country support. And Rafa and his team are just incredible. They're so on top of everything. You can go on our website and you can see some of the itineraries that we've discussed and some other ones too that we couldn't even touch on. Well, thank you so much for coming. We appreciate you being here and taking your time to learn about Patagonia with us.